All right, welcome to another episode of the Buzz Beat podcast. For today's recording, we are live on the Substack app. Once again, if you have the app or visit buzzbeat.substack.com, it will automatically notify you and pop up when we go live, which is a handy little feature. I'm Brian Geisinger. Today, I'll be joined by my co-host, Darian. The two of us, we have March Madness right now. We're sick. We have fevers. And we are crazy in the brains with March Madness, but it is a beloved time of the year here in my house, as I'm sure it is in many of you guys who are tuning in and listening. NCAA, we're recording this on Tuesday, March 18th. The NCAA tournament starts officially tonight with the first four in Dayton, and then obviously officially 2 days later when the field is narrowed down to 64 teams and it begins in full. Darian, before the madness of March, before we start breaking down prospects, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Like you said, March Madness is here. Hornets have, they put together a game against the Spurs that was fun, even though the game against the Clippers wasn't as fun. But it's very rare that you get March Madness and the Hornets winning at the same time.
Yes, that is true. And obviously the ACC tournament was in Charlotte much of last week, with the Hornets on the road. That's that happens every time the ACC tournament is in Charlotte, but certainly a lot of like current and former Hornets representation that was in Charlotte for those games. A lot of Mitch Kupchak and Buzz Peterson sightings during the UNC games, which was interesting, along with Roy Williams. But what we're going to do today is, look, by no means is this going to be a complete list, but we're going to try to go through sort of like rapid fire style, like some of the top billing prospects that are in the 2025 men's NCAA tournament. We're going to try to look at 3 prospects per region, starting in the South. Look, Darian and I both have we're both guilty occasionally of wanting to talk a little bit too much and ramble, occasionally incoherently. So we're going to try to go through a couple minutes on each prospect here that we're highlighting. But if we're going long by the time we get to the Midwest region, we may be just zipping through some of these. So forgive us. We're going to be trying to manage the clock along the way, and just let it be known that, like, especially once the draft lottery is out, we're going to be doing deeper dives on probably like a handful of these guys, including some who are not, there's no Dylan Harper, there's no Ace Bailey in the NCAA tournament, who are 2 people that could very easily be on the Hornets radar. But some of the guys we are going to talk about will be on the Hornets radar. And yes, best believe, come mid-April and beyond, we're going to do some deeper dive pods as we start to really shift into off-season mode with the Charlotte Hornets. But with that said, Darian, are you ready to get going here?
I'm excited. I'm ready.
All right. We would play the March Madness sounder, but there's probably some copyright infringement. So we'll just everyone in your heads, just start hearing it out loud. All right. We'll start with the South region, and with the 2 seed Michigan State, which is going up against 15 seed Bryant. We're going to pick out a prospect here, a man with a familiar name to fans of NBA teams in Charlotte. We're going to go with Jace Richardson. Freshman guard for Michigan State, 6'2", 185, lefty, very left-handed dominant, smaller guard, but a good athlete, nice vertical pop as a leaper. He's had some really fun moments in games that I've seen this season, blocking shots, including one of the rejections he had in the Wisconsin game in the semifinals of the Big Ten tournament, when he seemed to sort of levitate for a half second longer to reject the shot. This is Jason Richardson's son, Michigan State legend, former Charlotte Bobcat, very, very good NBA player for an exceptionally long period of time as well. Darian, I've got some other thoughts on Jace Richardson, but just your take on what you've seen of the freshman Southpaw so far this season.
I really like Jace Richardson. I like his ability to really hang in the air, like you were mentioning, whether that be blocking shots or contesting, or really just mostly on the offensive side, where he's able to take on contact and just hang in the air for a long time. Defenders are getting their second jump in before he even touches the ground, and he puts the ball up, and it just seems like it's automatic at times. I like that he doesn't shy away from the contact, whether that be him trying to score, him trying to pass. I do like that kind of ability to, he's a little smaller, being at like 6'3", but even amongst the trees, he's just not afraid down there, and I really appreciate that for his game. I do wonder about like maybe if his ability to be like the guard, just because his game projects for him to be more of a lead type of, the way he's just able to score, just have the ball in his hand. So you do wonder, like, can he take on those lead guard duties? But as far as like trajectory, his offensive skill, it's unmatched. I think that he's just a really fun player. I think that you also wonder about like the volume, like the way
Yes.
he plays.
Yeah.
I really see like, okay, he might can do it, but we just haven't seen it. But he plays as though he probably would need the ball in his hand a lot to be extremely effective. But will we get what we saw at Michigan State if he's, if the, let's just say the Hornets are like, all right, go out there and do your thing? Because Michigan State's so talented, he was really confined a little bit, not in a bad way. But it for him in his draft stock, I mean, it's great. It highlighted him in ways that teams are going to be willing to make that jump. But you do have to consider, like, can he do that when all the attention's on him?
Yeah, lower usage prospect, 19.5%, though that's gone up throughout the season. And he's played more aggressive since he got added to the starting lineup. And since Big Ten play started, he's a prospect that I would say his draft stock has risen as much as just about anyone's throughout the season. To me, yeah, Michigan State, they've had a very successful season. The offense can get stuck in the mud a little bit. And sometimes it's like, it's almost begging for more Richardson, for sort of like more on ball usage and equity for him. But he's been hyper efficient this season, 41% on threes, 58% on twos, 84% from the line, 64% true shooting, and drawing 4.5 fouls per 40 minutes. Again, very efficient for a smaller freshman guard. And I really do miss, I do have some gripes with his usage in Michigan State's offense, but I think they also run a lot of good actions to get him coming off screens, whether it's dribble handoff zoom action or floppy action or down screens curling to that left hand. Again, he is pretty dominant with that. But I just like him, taking on more offensive responsibility, more aggressiveness throughout the season. And with that, his efficiency has also jumped too. So just a really promising young guard, good pace, footwork using screens. And again, the touch on that shot making all really pops for him. I see him as a lottery prospect, pretty safely, maybe more towards the later part of the lottery, but I quite like Jace Richardson a decent amount. So with that, we are going to look to the, I believe, yes, the number 7 seed in the South. We're going to keep it moving here. The number 7 seed in the South region, those are that's the Marquette Golden Eagles of Shaka Smart. They're playing 10 seed New Mexico in the first round. And we're going to take a look at Cam Jones, who was named second team All-American earlier this afternoon. He's listed at 6'5". To me, he probably looks more 6'3.5", but around 200 pounds. It's like not bad size for a combo guard. Not like an amazingly explosive athlete, but he's quick. His motor runs really hot. And I would say like he's got some good athletic qualities in terms of his ability to stop on a dime, change direction. And again, like I said, he can run all game. He's the guy who could have gone pro last season.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
And if you had asked me this time a year ago, I would have. He's someone I probably even said this on a pod at some point. Like he's a guy I thought with a strong March. Maybe if Marquette made a deep run, he plays great. Maybe that's the thing that sort of like buoys him to go to the next level. NC State knocks them out in the second round during their magical run. Look, this season, no Tyler Kolek, no Oso Ighodaro. Both guys, rostered by NBA teams with the Knicks and the Suns this season. So he became like the central playmaking piece for this Marquette team. His numbers have really jumped. and he's enhanced his status, I believe, as like a late first round pick now with his sort of like with his development as a playmaker. Assist rate from 17% last season up to 38.5% this season. Assist to turnover ratio 1.78 turnovers or pardon me, 1.77 assists to 1 turnover last season. That's almost doubled this season. 3.3 assists per turnover, and he's shooting the ball from the mid range with greater frequency and greater efficiency. 46% on long twos this season, up from 29% this year. 3-point shooting dipped a little bit, but that probably should have been priced into the equation with him, just because more on ball reps, more defensive attention. This guy was at the top of the scouting report for Marquette in a loaded Big East conference. And he played great while taking on a different role this season. So really liked what I saw from Cam Jones. I think he could make a really interesting pro as maybe a late first round pick. Darian, what are your thoughts on Marquette senior Cam Jones?
I've always liked Cam Jones. I think that what I really like about him is that he's put together four good years. I don't think that, I know his first year he didn't play as much and he didn't start that much, but I think that all his time at Marquette was just 4 really solid years. And I too wondered why he didn't go pro. I mean, there's always reasons for guys they thought they could go a little higher. And it seems as though it worked out for him. I think, as you mentioned, people are going to wonder about like why his 3-point shot, dwindled a little bit. And it does make you wonder, is that 3-point shot real? Because I know that a lot of teams still like to tie free throw efficiency to like they're being able to shoot the 3. So we'll see what happens there. But I mean, I know he didn't always shoot 40% like he did last year. So that's why I really thought he was going to, enter the draft last year. But I think it's okay. I like the combo guard aspect. I think you could add a little more defensively, but he's a guy that's just going to play. I think that we hear stories all the time about how guys play one way in college, they get to the league and they just want it bad enough. They're willing to change up their game if that means they can stay. And he just strikes me as one of those guys. And it's going to be helpful when, he's coming off somebody's bench and then he's still able to score. I don't think he's ever going to lose that. But then he's also like a pest on defense. He's a guy, big game. Like he's a big game player. Marquette has been in a lot of big games these last few years, and he's been a big reason for that. Like you mentioned, Tyler Kolek and also Iguodala, who I really liked both of them last year. But to watch him, I think that he's one of the guys that show like why the 4-year thing is important. You saw him grow all throughout college and switch different roles, play different styles. And to me, he was successful in everything they asked him to do. I do agree he's a little smaller than what's said, but like I mentioned, I just really like a guy that has shown that he can play no matter what system, no matter how he's playing, no matter where he's playing. He's going to show up. I think he showed up in the NCAA tournament. He shows up in a Big East tournament. Like he's just a guy that balls out every time. So I really look forward to him, see what he does in the NBA level. I think once again, I could see him probably adjusting. I don't think he's going to become some defensive stopper, but I do think we're going to lose a little offensively, gain a little more defensively, and he's going to be around for a while. He's going to be one of those guys that everybody raves about. It's like, oh, how did this team miss on this guy? It's like, no, everybody was talking about him.
I could see him fitting in a lot of different systems, but teams that really have like a lot of motion, a lot of like dribble handoffs. If you saw him play with Iguodala the 2 previous seasons, you kind of know, like, Marquette has a lot of pistol action and they have a lot of like, 5-out initiation with Iguodala and I mean, Cam Jones was amazing playing off of that. It would be really funny to see him get to play with. It would be really fun to see him play with a hub, a high post hub, front court playmaker type in the NBA. All right, moving on. We're gonna go back to the Big Ten here, and we're gonna go to the 5 seed in the South region. Michigan veteran big man Danny Wolf transferred in from Yale this past offseason. So this was a big jump in competition for him this year. I remember watching him play for the first time against Wake Forest back in early to mid-November when they played in Greensboro against the Demon Deacons, a game that Wake won, actually. But Wolf is a striking player. Like, as soon as you put his film on, 7 feet tall, 250 pounds, has center size, but plays a lot of 4 with Michigan because he's playing next to Vlad Golden. another transfer big guy that joined Michigan this past offseason. This team just won the Big Ten tournament. That's a rather impressive accomplishment. They've been gifted, unfortunately, a pretty tough pathway in the NCAA tournament. He is a unique prospect, at least in this field. There just aren't a lot of 7-foot guys like this that handle the ball the way he does. You see a lot of 4 or 5 pick and rolls with him, between he and Golden in Michigan's, offense, whether they throw it to him at the elbow or above the arc. They're going to give him a lot of those types of reps, and Wolf can really he turns the ball over a fair amount in those kinds of looks because he takes chances as a passer. I kind of like that he does that a little bit. But and again, it's kind of fun to see him sort of like, either make crafty passes or, sort of like sling the ball all over the court. Has some shot creation ability to his own game too. We just talked about the size and the playmaking. This year alone, over 3 unassisted field goals per game. That ranks in the 97th percentile among forwards in the country, according to CBB analytics. So, and a fair amount of like unassisted threes too. Again, he can kind of do a lot of different stuff with the ball in his hands. So someone that it's very easy to project him just being, whether it's starter level or coming off the bench, it's easy to project him being in rotations, sort of in the way that we could have talked about Kyle Filipowski last season too, right? Just because not identical players, but just 7-footers that can have good size, can play through contact, and can handle the ball in a variety of different contexts. So, Darian, your thoughts on Michigan big man Danny Wolf?
I really like Danny Wolf. I think that for me, maybe it could just be for viewing pleasure, but I would really hope that he really dives into this whole like point center thing, because he looks so comfortable on the perimeter, whether that's doing a handoff, whether that's creating for himself, whether that's, looking to make like you said, the flashy pass. He just looks so comfortable out there. So I would really like to see him kind of lean into that a little more, because I think that that's something that, as versatile as the NBA has become, there's still not too many guys like him. And he's, in a way, he's able to do it like with his pacing. It's not like Jokic moves that fast if we're looking for another center that can pass that way. So it's exciting basketball to watch, and I would expect like some shooters around him. He could get really dangerous. He also is really good at finding cutters. He's good at, playmaking from the post. I think his shot is something that I look forward to as well. I think that for the rate he shoots at, and then his percentage shooting, what is exactly? I just had it. He's shooting 34% for a big. I'm not like too concerned as far as, will it translate? I mean, considering he's able to do so much offensively, I think you're willing to take a 34% shot, and especially with NBA spacing, I can see that even going up. I like his aggressive rebounding. He's just an all-around fun player to watch, but also I think that in the right system, that could be really beneficial. Like, I know we're not putting him with players or comps or anything, but I would really like to see him play like with a 4 that's almost like Evan Mobley, that can kind of help protect the rim. Just guys of that nature. And there's probably more guys than that, but that's the first guy that came to mind, is someone that can benefit from him offensively, but also kind of have his back defensively, because that's not who you want out there running your 5 spot. And it's not like he's terrible, but you definitely are getting him for the offensive possession. So I think that, he could be a really good, nice prospect in the right spot.
Yeah, I like Wolf. I'm curious to sort of see what the playmaking looks like on the ball in the next level. Like 4 or 5 pick and rolls, NBA teams can generally just like switch those and gobble it up. So I'm kind of serious to see what that looks like. I do think there's like potential for him to be like a handoff hub and, pick and pop kind of guy that can also attack a closeout or run inverted pick and roll. I think that kind of stuff intrigues me a little bit more. All right, we're gonna flip it over. We're gonna come East Coast, and we're gonna take a trip to about 1.5 miles from where I'm currently sitting right now, the Lenovo Center in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's where we're gonna see some of the first round matches from the East Regional, including the matchup between 8-9, which is going to be Mississippi State and Baylor Friday afternoon. And we're going to talk about one of the very best prospects in this entire class. That's VJ Edgecombe. This is someone that, Darian, unless the Hornets get the number 1 pick in the draft, we're going to be talking about him a lot this summer. Get ready, because this is a guy that has probably his floor is probably 4 or 5 in the draft, and he probably could. At this point, he's probably third on my board. I would say um, one of the best athletes in the draft class. He's listed at 6'5". He's probably more around 6'3". Wingspan's not crazy, probably about 6'6", 6'7" wingspan. So like that's maybe those two things are like a little concerning from like a size component. To me, those are some of the few knocks on this guy as sort of like an explosive scoring guard prospect. He's made incredible strides throughout the course of the season. I saw him play for the first time last offseason when he was on the Bahamas national team that was trying to crack into the Olympics. He showed up pretty well in some of those qualification matches. Got off to a bit of a slow start at Baylor, but he has just throughout the course of the season, like he's improved as a ball handler and he's taken on the lead guard role for this Baylor team. If you were watching Baylor play in, December, you're watching a lot of Jeremy Roach, Robert Wright, Jaden Nunn handling the ball. And those guys are still, especially Wright, I mean, those guys are still all handling the ball a lot. But at the Edgecombe Norchad O'Meara pick and roll has become like the backbone of the team's offense. He shot the 3 ball better as the year's gone along, 39% from deep. In Big 12 play, can play on and off the ball. Like they can get him off the ball. He's great in floppy action, coming off pin downs and like looking to attack. Unbelievably quick. I'm not sure there's like a faster player with faster, more explosive player with the ball in his hands in the 2025 draft class. In the open floor, he's a blur. Insanely competitive, is looking to dunk on guys at the rim. But as much as he certainly is like wired to score. And when he's, running pick and roll and driving, that is what he's looking to do. But he does have some he has some playmaking equity to him too. Like he can set guys up, he can create open shots, he can bend defenses. And I think he's really at like the early stages sort of like learning to like read coverages, manipulate stuff. But I'm really high on VJ Edgecombe. I like him a lot as a prospect. And Darian, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about Baylor's freshman guard, VJ Edgecombe.
Well, add me to the fan club because I think Edgecombe is a phenomenal player. He's one of my favorite players to scout, like type of player. It's just because when I look at him, it's like he's just got it. Like there's a lot of players you look at and like, oh, if they develop this, they develop this. He just looks like a pure hooper. And as good as that is, I can also count that as a negative, as in I think that there needs to be a little bit more to help him be like a well-renowned basketball player. But I mean, there's a reason why he is, like you said, his floor is probably 5. It's just because he's extremely quick. I think he's very well controlled, especially on the offensive end. Like he's not just out of control. I mean, he does make some plays like that, but I mean, he's a kid. That's what they do. I'm tired of people using that against 18-year-olds. But he's just a very well-controlled player. Like you said, he has added some playmaking and has developed that a little bit. He almost can come off as an offense by himself at times. And I like that his intensity on the defensive end, though I think that he could work on his mechanics. But usually it's the other way around. Usually you have guys who just don't bring it defensively. But they have like the size and whatnot. And as you mentioned, he may not have the wingspan. He may not be 6'5" or 6'4" as listed because he does look a little on the shorter side. But he wants to play defense. And I think that's the biggest part. You can convince a kid to play defense. You can worry about the rest later. And if we're talking specifically Charlotte Hornets, I think that he's kind of a guy that we're looking for. I have my whole little theory about how Brandon Miller and Miles look on the court together. That can kind of shake that up a little bit. And we can go, obviously we'll probably go into the offseason, but yeah, he's an incredible player. I really like everything about this guy. Like, he's just the perfect fit. I'm excited. As you mentioned, if we don't get one, it's going to be hard to say no to this guy.
Yeah. He's, he makes a lot of sense with the current like young core of the Hornets, if you want to call it that. And again, his speed and athleticism and rim pressure would be, well received on this team. In my opinion. All right. We're going to flip it over to Duke, the number 1 seed in the East region, the number 2 overall seed in the entire tournament. Your recently crowned ACC champs who just won the final 2 games in Charlotte without the player that we're about to talk about. That is freshman forward Cooper Flagg. In my opinion, I mean, hands down, one of the better prospects we've seen of the last decade. As close to a sure thing as you could probably have coming into the NBA. I believe in him as not just a big time future NBA player, but the kind of guy that you build teams around for years to come. 6'9", 205 pounds. Skinny but not super skinny, and certainly has a frame where you can tell someone's going to put him on the Jason Tatum, workout regimen. Tatum's one of his favorite players. And I've gotten to see Cooper up close. I've been at all but 2 Duke home games this season, covering them. Have been blown away with his intangibles, his communication, his competitiveness, his leadership. Guys like to play with Cooper Flag. And given the hype and attention that he has around him, that is noticeable. Defensively, on the ball, guarding one-on-one in space, there are some issues there. He's not just this like sticky, unbreakable one-on-one defender. And he, as a help defender, he can also overhelp and miss rotations. But when he's like plugged in defensively, he's a game wrecker as a weak side, rim protector. When they have Kaman Malawach guarding pick and rolls up at the level, Cooper can shut everything down on the backside. Long arms, pesky in passing lanes, and he's looking to turn those turnovers into dunks in the other direction. Like, definitely has a flair for the moment. Has shot it better as the year's gone along. 44% on threes in ACC play for the season. 37% from Duke. Plenty of that off the dribble. 83% from the line. 54% on twos. Drawing almost 6 fouls per 40 minutes. Look, there's too many things I could say about this guy as a mismatched piece. What he can do as on either side of the pick and roll, as a ball handler, or in the short roll, as a post up threat. Like, there are so many pathways for this guy being a superstar in the NBA. It's just screaming out. So I'll have more to say on Cooper Flag, but Darian, your thoughts on the future number 1 pick from Duke?
No, I share every sentiment you brought up. I think that he really is. I know that this term has been used a lot, but he truly is a Swiss Army knife. Or as in baseball, they say a 5-tool player. Like, he absolutely does it all. And what I like about his game, and you could almost kind of say this about VJ, except it's on a grander scale. To me, it almost doesn't matter what he does. If he scores 5 points, well, he also has 13 rebounds and 7 assists. If he has 2 rebounds, he also has 7 assists and 3 blocks and 2. Like, he just does it all. I don't think that I don't think that we've seen a player like this in a while. That it feels as though it's certain. He may not be. Wouldn't be an excuse. He would be the number 1 pick, but I think there's no way he fails. I think that he's going to have a career in the NBA. It may not be how it's being hyped up to be, but there's no way he fails. I feel as though I can almost guarantee. I like his competitive edge, which is something I feel like, being on the Hornets podcast, I feel like we need to bring up about some of these guys is how competitive they can be. Whether the moment's low, high, he's going to compete. And I'd like how versatile he is. There are obviously some things he needs to work on. Everybody, every player needs to have things they need to work on, but I think he's an incredible talent. I like the way he's able to shoot. I like the way he's able to defend and play make. Like you said, the help side defense I think is really good, which we try to get PJ to do. He is 10 times what we wanted from PJ to me. The only thing is, like, I will say that he almost seems kind of stuck as like a 4, but I don't think that that's really he does so much well, it doesn't really matter. But he can
also guard so many positions, and he shoots it well enough. And like, he's basically playing point. He's basically like a point forward for Duke's offense.
Exactly.
Like, I've written about this a bunch this season. Duke has basically like reoriented its 5-out offense around him. And they basically use him the way that the Celtics use Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Like, they play this 5-out look, but instead of playing the center, who we're about to talk about in a second here, instead of playing their center in the middle of the court, they space their center to the wing. And then they put the ball in the hands, like Boston does this with Tatum and with Brown. Duke does this with Cooper Flag. And then they're running actions off of that with those guys handling the ball in the middle of the court. it's been very effective for all of Duke's stars this season. But Flag has really, his decision making and his passing. We didn't even touch on that. We could spend 25 minutes talking about that. Very good passer, reads the floor, very good decision maker, is consistently making the right decisions, even though he's an 18-year-old that Duke just built one of the best offenses in the country, with this guy being like the linchpin for it. So, again, we'll have plenty more to say on Flag throughout the spring and summer. Let's go to his teammate, Kaman Malawach, 7'2" freshman center, 250 pounds. Darian, I've stood next to Kaman Malawach many times. I have never felt shorter, I don't think. Like I've seen some unbelievably tall and graceful players come through Duke. Mark Williams, Derek Lively. I mean, Kaman is taller than those guys. I don't think he's, no one that size is really like laterally as skilled as Lively is. But Kaman Malawach, like I would say, like side to side laterally, a pretty good athlete too. Has moments when he's able, they switch out with him a lot, or they have him up at the level of the screen a lot. And while I don't think he's like an unstoppable, switch defender, guards can attack his top foot and get by him. His ability to do that, and go back and watch the Notre Dame game from Cameron back in January. Notre Dame runs a pretty sophisticated offense, where they've got a ton of, on-ball screens, ghost screens, pin down slips, and he was just nailing all of the switches in that game. Just boom, boom, boom. Really impressive stuff. The rim protection with him, you might expect it to be a little bit better. He's not like the quickest off his feet, though I think he does cover a good amount of ground. I think there's some like untapped potential to this. And I also think if Duke had just kept him in drop coverage throughout the season, like I think there's a chance he would have just blocked more shots by being around the rim more, as opposed to also being asked to guard ACC, two guards and ones in space 20 whatever feet from the rim. Offensively, one of the things that you have to love about Malawach, one, he's a great offensive rebounder. Defensive rebounding, he's a little shaky.
Yeah, it's a little shaky.
It's a little shaky. That's probably one of the numbers are good, but like the film, we're seeing him in person, he gets knocked off his plane a lot. And sometimes he just has trouble grabbing the ball, he's obviously very young, he's developing, but this guy is such a willing screener and such a willing role man. He is always, the way Lively was when he was at Duke too, just two guys that are so willing to give themselves up if it means like collapsing the defense and opening things up for the rest of the offense. He doesn't look to post up. He almost never posts up, but he isn't just a straight rim run guy. Like they throw it to him at the elbow a lot. Like he's asked to, organize offense at times for them too. I actually think the like comments on him being like in like a limited role don't really take, like he's in a limited like shot diet role. 75% of his shots come at the rim. He's shooting 80% at the rim too. But like he does a lot of stuff on both sides of the court. He's a big time prospect. He's a guy, if the Hornets are picking, 3, 4, or 5 or whatever, we're gonna have to talk about him. Because I think he's pretty safely a top 10 pick, and he's a guy that could absolutely get up into the top 6 of the draft too. So thoughts on Malawach?
I think he's just the definition of what the NBA is looking for in a center. And obviously it depends on the team. If you get a guy that's extremely talented, of course, he's a guy that's just going to show up and work like that. Down to that, like you said, the defensive rebound is a little shaky, but I like his versatility defensively still. And then, like you said, I think he's also a great offensive rebounder. I think that he is going to do what's better for the team offensively and defensively. He's really good at sitting in the dunker spot. It makes himself available offensively. So while he may not post players up, he is available. I think that whoever's driving to the rim or whoever's trying to get the ball down low, they know where he's going to be, and he's usually there, and he's usually going to get up and convert. So I like that. I like his size. I think that he's just a very, very solid player. I think that you don't, as I mentioned, Cooper won't fail. I feel as though almost he won't, unless some team tries to use him in ways he's not supposed to be used.
Yeah.
But he's just solid. He's just going to do what you ask him to do. And so many times we look at the NBA and there's a center that's trying to do a little too much, maybe try to convert himself into a three-point shooter, it doesn't work out. And he's flirted with threes. I don't know if I'm like, I know when we drafted Mark Williams, it was like, oh, he's going to learn how to shoot the three. I don't know if I'm really looking for that from Milo Watch. I mean, fine, put him in the corner and we'll see.
He's a step beyond. I will say he's not. And he is so young, and he flirted with the three when he played with the South Sudan national team, when he played with in the BAL last season. So like, there are some, and Duke has empowered him to shoot. Like John Shire told me in October or whatever, he was like, we're telling him to shoot the ball. And he had a pick and pop three in the title game, or maybe it was the semifinals against UNC. I think it was semifinals against UNC, but he had a pick and pop three in the ACC tournament too. So like, I wouldn't bank on it, but I think he has there's a better chance that he does it than someone like Mark Williams. I just never, I would even say even more of a chance he does it than like a guy like Derek Lively, who's another guy that Duke flirted with it. And like, it was a part of the package potentially with Lively as a prospect as well. So
he looks more, I can say he looks more natural, like doing it looks a little more natural with him as opposed to everybody else. It was like, you need to add this to your game for the next level. His felt a little, it just feels a little more natural. But what he does everywhere else is so good that it's just like, I'm not going to rush it, but I definitely would like to see it because at that height, if you're able to hit at all, I think that's going to open up an offense for a team.
The other thing I would say about him too, and this is something I've gotten to notice from getting to be up close around Duke this season. This is something I said on this pod a lot during the draft process around Derek Lively. Kamal Malawatch is talking the whole game. And if you're thinking about your defensive anchor, which is like what a team that takes him in the top 7 or 8 or whatever is looking for, that you want this guy to be constantly talking and calling stuff out. He's super competitive. The intangibles are good too, along with the 7'2" height, the 9'8", 9'9", whatever it is, standing reach. Again, I like the fact that he is constantly not just in motion defensively, but also like constantly communicating. Like this is becoming my like boomer basketball opinion, but just like I want competitive guys that talk a lot on teams that I'm pulling for. And Malawatch really does check those boxes. So it's been a phenomenal season for him. He's a solid offensive player that I think, while he is in a limited play finishing role for Duke, he actually does more for them as like a screen setter, guy that plays out on the wing and plays in the corner, and they use him as a screener in some creative ways too. So, all right, we're going to go from east to west here. We're going to flip it out to the West region, and the number 1 seed in that part of the bracket in, we're flipping from Duke to Florida. These are 2 of the best teams in the entire field. We've got Walter Clayton Jr. and the Florida Gators. They're playing Norfolk State Friday night with an East Coast tip-off time of 6:50. Look, we said this kind of about Cam Jones a few minutes ago. Walter Clayton Jr. is someone who could have come out and gone to the draft last year. I'm like a little surprised he's this is someone who's actually still in college basketball. This is year 4 for him, 2 years at Iona, 2 years at Florida. As far as 6'3" guard, 200 pounds. If you didn't know, Walter Clayton was recruited out of high school to play football at Georgia. He is a very good athlete. He's very tough. He's very physical. He's competitive. And while he has a lot of those like sort of like bulldog guard qualities, this guy is one of the most ridiculous shooters I've seen in college basketball, I feel like, in a few years. If this guy was a freshman, can you imagine and he was producing like this? I mean, he would probably be the number 2 pick. Like, this guy is a nutty pull-up shooter, big range. Like he was one of those, when I watched him play, they played Wake Forest early in the season, each of the last 2 seasons. But last year, I kind of couldn't believe like some of the stuff, like some of the shots he was taking. And he just has a cannon for a jump shot. 38% from deep this season, on over 250 attempts. Only 57% of his threes this season were assisted. So think about how many hits he has that have been unassisted this year. Of his long twos, he shot 42% on long twos, Florida's offense, they don't take a ton of long twos. This is like Duke and Alabama. Like this is a dunks and threes offense for the most part, but 42% on long twos, with every single long two coming unassisted, 64% shooting at the rim, with 76% of his rim finishes coming unassisted too. So he's not like, he scores from multiple levels of the court. I think he's made strides as a half-court decision maker and passer for them this season, as he was sort of like asked. They have a loaded backcourt, but he really is like the lead ball handler for them next to Martin and Richard on the other wing. Not the most accurate passer, like in sort of like lead guard, I don't think kind of like naturally comes to him, but the shooting, the skill, and the just sort of like live ball playmaking is really, really awesome. And to me, yeah, like I don't know if he's early first round, late second round. I'm not, I haven't quite landed on where I am with Clayton yet, but I like him I love him as a college player, and I like him a lot as a prospect, and I'm looking forward to seeing him have a big tournament run. Darian, what about you?
I was just about to say the same thing about the college aspect compared to the pro. Like, I love him as a college basketball player. Like, he's one of those guys that when my grandchildren ask about like some like offensive firehouse type of guys, I'm going to bring his name up. He's just one of those guys where you're just going to remember him. And if he doesn't make it to if he's not able to sustain himself in the league, like you said, the cannon offensively, he's pulling up from anywhere, everywhere. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's being defended. It doesn't matter how tight the coverage is. He's going to pull up, and he's going to cash it more likely than not. He's just a fun player to watch. I like his athleticism. I think his offensive game as a whole is just, I don't know if I can say it's complete, but it's just dominant. I like, obviously there's things that everybody needs to work on, as I keep saying, but it's just a dominant performance every time he's on the floor. He really can just do it all. I do worry about his defense a little bit at the next level, but as a guy that can just score the way he can, I just don't know. If you just get him to score, you're going to be very happy. If you're going to get him as in, I'm going to take a swing on a guy and see, what he develops into, I think you may be a little more upset about your pick, or however teams evaluate. But I think if you go in thinking about his offense and then saying, you know what, we'll take the firepower and then we'll adjust from there, I think you'll be very, very pleased, because that's exactly what he's going to bring. I don't care, what happens with his career. I don't think you can say that, oh, well, he couldn't score, because that's the last thing. And then I did like how you mentioned about his ability to kind of be a lead guard. You do worry about that, especially considering his size, especially at the NBA level. But offensively, when it comes to shooting, I think it's almost unmatched. It almost truly is. Like you said, if he was a freshman, it would have been nightly highlights for him easily.
Yep.
Easily.
Yeah. He's a special player, and he's done a hell of a job with Florida this season. All right, we're gonna go back to the Big Ten for our next prospect. We're going with Maryland center / power forward. He's had to play a lot of the four for them this season, and kind of some just Maryland's a very good team, but some interesting, roster construction with them basically having two of their top 3 or 4 guys are basically both fives, along with Queen and Juju Reese. Jarrett Queen, freshman, older for a freshman, played at Montverde in high school with Cooper Flagg and with Asa Newell from Georgia, who's another, lottery prospect that we'll probably talk about more throughout the offseason. Queen is someone that we're certainly going to talk about more too. Look, I think he's in contention with Malowich for center 1 in this draft. And I think they're both top 7, 8 picks, top 9, 10 picks. 6'10", 250 pounds. Again, he's already 20 years old. But the feel, the skill is all really, really high and really good stuff for a guy he's lost weight too. He's in much better shape than he was in high school. For a player with his size, and you can see him handle the ball in the open court. Like, he's not just a pure like handoff hub. Like, he can genuinely do stuff with the ball, stop on a dime, flow into a handoff, then short roll, get downhill. The ball handling and the footwork, it's pretty special. I really like his talent. I wish he shot it better from 3. I wish he was a little bit better of a defender. I think if you draft a guy like Queen early and you're looking to build around him, you're going to have to be thoughtful with the play. Sort of like the way when we talked about Alpi Sengun in 2021. These were conversations on this pod that we had around then too. And that's assuming Queen, hits, his high projections as an offensive hub. Even then, I think you're gonna have to think about the roster you put around him, the defenders you put around him, what the other big man next to him is, defensive profile wise. That said, I like Derek Queen a lot. His skill level is incredibly high. The passing is so much fun. And the playmaking and the feel for the game pops so much that when you watch him, it makes me want to look past the limitations. Do you know what I mean? And just sort of only see the positives and just envision what this guy could be with a little bit more seasoning. So certainly some red flags, but a big time prospect for Maryland. Darian, what are your thoughts on freshman 4/5 Derek Queen?
He's one of those guys that I selfishly just like to watch. I love bigs that just know how to work, and he's one of them. He knows how to put the ball on the floor. He knows, like you said, he knows how to pass the cutters, pass to the outside from the post. He's just a fun player to watch. I love his footwork, his touch around the rim. He's always putting up big games. His ability to rebound is something I think that is not talked about enough, because I think that it's not like the rebounds are just falling in his lap. He's actually working to get these boards. I know that the defense does leave a lot to be desired, especially when you think about – it's hard to not think about in a Hornets, tunnel, because it's if this guy is our center, I don't like it. Obviously don't like it. But it's just not every team is the Hornets, and some teams know how to get these guys and know how to make it work. So, it's always going to be about fit, about certain players, but he's definitely one that I feel as though it's going to be truly important for him. And as I mentioned with Malawatch, I don't think he will fail, because we know what he does. I think Derek Queen is one of those guys where, if teams try to do too much with him too quickly, that's where it could get a little shaky, because he still has, even what he's good at as far as scoring, he still has a lot to work on. So I don't think that, they should try to go ahead and turn him to this offensive hub, off rip. I think that it should take some time to learn to develop him, even though you draft him high, because the NBA is one of those sports where you're drafted high, you gotta people need to see something quickly, but I don't think you're going to get that.
You know what's going to happen with him? This is going to be the perfect situation for him. Mm-hmm. The Sixers are going to get the 7th pick. It's going to convey to Oklahoma City, and he's going to go to the Thunder and develop, and he and Chet are meant to play next to each other.
Exactly.
And he'd be perfect. He would get on the. He would be a perfect fit for OKC. The fact that there's a small chance that could even happen, months after Oklahoma City potentially wins the title is man, it's unfair.
They always find a way.
Yeah, it is amazing. All right. Any other thoughts on a Queen, Darian? Sorry, I kind of cut you off a little bit.
No, you're good. I think that's it. I think that, like you said, I do like the fit though. I think him playing against a player like Chet is going to elevate his game for sure. And OKC's perfect because they're already good. And so it allows him to take that time to, refine everything.
He would have time. And again, his rebounding, long-term could be a real boon for them too. And again, just the playmaking component of him could be very helpful, even for, as the team is looking for playmaking options around Shea. Why are we talking about the Thunder? It's an embarrassment of riches there. Maryland will play Grand Canyon in the first round of the NCAA tournament. The next team we're going to talk about is Colorado State. They're playing Memphis. The winners of those two games, Maryland versus Grand Canyon, Memphis versus Colorado State, will meet in the second round. So maybe we will see Derek Queen, if there's at least one upset, playing against Nick Clifford in the Colorado State Rams. Look, Clifford's someone that I thought should have gone pro a year ago. It's awesome that he came back. I'm sure he's done well for himself in terms of NIL. And if anything, he probably boosted his stock a little bit. I think he probably has. So in theory, it's worked out, but he's basically spent the last, 6 to 9 months in Colorado Springs just being an NBA player there. This guy's ready, I think, to contribute to an NBA team tonight. You could put him on the floor, and he would be ready to, ready to roll, but an incredibly versatile prospect. 6'6", good size, on the wing. I remember scouting him last season and really liking him a lot. And again, I think he's taken a step this year. Excellent finisher. He can really pass. Again, we talked about that size on the wing or at the off guard spot, good feel. And he's capable of defending not just multiple positions, but in part because he is a veteran, but just like nailing down team concepts. And I just think this season he's made strides. He's turned into a more sophisticated and complete scorer, someone that's been impossible to stop on certain nights. So this guy's an NBA player. He's a first round pick, and some team drafting mid to late in the first round is going to, I think, luck themselves into a guy like Clifford, who's going to be ready to roll from day one next season.
Yeah, he's one of those guys where honestly, you would be thankful for the fifth COVID year, because I think that's helped him a lot. His first 2 years at Colorado kind of looked, it looked like he had the tools, but you were just worried because
It's
didn't
crazy.
have the production.
His
He just
development is
turns it
crazy.
around.
It's crazy.
And then I like that where he is now. Even if you would have told me that he would turn it around, I wouldn't believe this is how far he would have came. I thought he would still show just been like an upside player, but as you mentioned, no, he can play now. And there's still upside to him, but he is just I don't know. I just would have never expected this. But shout out to him for working on his development. Crazy athletic player, does a little bit of everything. As I mentioned, he doesn't really play out of his mind. He's not really trying to prove anything. I think that him playing that way is also just a testament to like I would say his like character and just how you can look forward to how he'll play for your team, whoever that may be, because of the fact that he has every reason to want to do more because of his past or because of how long it's taken him to get where he is. But no, he's playing the right way, and I think that's doing him way more favors than someone just going in and chucking up shots. Like he's just an extremely efficient player. I like everything he does, and like I do believe day one he should be able to play. That's a guy that a team like the Hornets, you need those kind of guys.
Yep. He kind of has some like Martin Twins components to his game too.
Yeah.
But, 40, a fifth year senior too, as those guys were coming out of Nevada. 40% on threes, 57% on twos, 77% from the line. Assist rate jumped from 19% last season, 27% this season. Usage up from 21% last year to 28% this year. Drawing 5 fouls per 40 minutes. That's up from 3.1 fouls drawn per 40 minutes last season. All right. We're going to flip it over to the fourth and final region here. We've got to speed it up a little bit. We've predictably talked too much. Darian, I take all the blame for that, like a good teammate here. We're going to go to the Midwest region, and we're going to go with Illinois and one of the top guard prospects in the 2025 draft, Kasparas Yakuchonis, 6'6", freshman guard out of Lithuania. Played for, I believe, Real Madrid, like B team last year. He's come over to the United States to play college basketball, and he's been statistically pretty dominant this season. They run a lot of pick and roll for him. It's a lot of 5 out at Illinois. They sort of similar to Duke. They play 5 out with the center space to the wing. It's a lot of double drag pick and roll. It is a lot of high ball screen action, middle ball screen action, and it's all predicated on getting this guy downhill and then letting him set guys up. And he's a good live ball finisher going to the rim, even though he's a below the rim, kind of athlete. He's strong, crafty, uses the angles well. I feel like once a draft, there's one of these, like Topic was like this last year, like a sort of below the rim, tall guard that's like puts up good numbers finishing around the hoop. A risky passer, no doubt, but certainly someone that like sees the floor and can set guys up and like wants to set guys up, create corner threes with his drives and high ball screen playmaking. The 3-point shot is like a little up and down. Right now he's shooting just under 33% from deep. He takes a lot of off dribble threes. The catch and shoot stuff hasn't been great this season, though I do kind of like some of the stuff he does as like a connective playmaker when he's able to get off the ball. He's at least like comfortable doing it. an interesting guard. This to me, he's sort of like high risk, high reward. Like I could see him busting out, or I could see him being like a guy that you also build an offense around in the NBA. He kind of has like, I mean, he is not in the same caliber as guys like LaMelo or Tyrese Halliburton, but like he wants to play like those guys, right? Like
Exactly. Yeah.
jumbo, lead ball handler, ton of pick and roll, play fast, and throw the ball over the yard. So what are your thoughts, Darian, on Jonas?
I almost don't like that he's projected too high, just because of the fact that I really like his potential to be, as you mentioned, like a LaMelo. And I've always like in football where you want your backup quarterback to be similar to your starting quarterback. That's how I feel about him, is that he does play enough like LaMelo, because there's too much of when LaMelo's out, whether it's his injury or he's just taking out the game, at times everything just stops. No one seems like they know what to do. And it doesn't matter who we have at point guard, because I think that sometimes we do have decent backup point guard play, but just the style of it throws everything off. And he would be the perfect fit for that. But he's projected too high for me to personally want him on the team. But yeah, crafty playmaker. I do like kind of like his pacing. I know that it kind of throws him off a little bit coming from Europe to play in college basketball, but I like European players that really I like players in general that really just take their time and allow themselves to process everything. Even though he can be a connector piece and move downhill quickly, but I like players like that kind of just play at their own pace. And he's kind of one of those players. He's definitely, as we talked about with other players that are not the lead guard, he's definitely more so of the lead guard. As you mentioned, the off-ball stuff is a little shaky, but there is potential there. I would like for the shooting to be a little better, but I think he's a good player. It's tough because it's one of those things where he could be trying to do too much, and that's what could cause him to bust out, as you mentioned. But at the same time, there are some things there. It's one of those things where I could maybe find that somewhere else for cheaper, or somewhere else for I wouldn't have to give up or mortgage my future in order to get what he provides. So that's the only thing about him. I don't think he has any skill set that really just jumps out at you in terms of he's so dominant at that, I need to have it. It's more so he's really good at it. Obviously it would benefit a team, but it's his lows that make you kind of wonder, is it just really even worth it? Because those skills you can kind of maybe get it done by committee or something. But
Yeah,
overall, as a college player, I like him, and I do like his projection. It's just I'm not as high on it as others may be.
yeah, it's look, you're betting on the creation upside with him. All right, we're gonna quickly just go over the last two. We're gonna touch on very briefly. I'm gonna throw this name out there for the second seed in the Midwest region, Chaz Lanier, 3-point shooting specialist. Teams looking for 3-point shooting in the early to mid second round. He's a guy that knows how to use screens, come off of down screens, very good in Tennessee's floppy action. He is older. He's a 23-year-old, transfer 5th-year player for Tennessee, but a fun player to watch because he can really shoot. And he's had a few games this season where he's really like blown up and just caught fire shooting from deep. I just watched one of his games against Texas A&M, the film of it pretty recently. But now let's use the last few minutes we have here, Darian, to focus on our 12th and final prospect. That's going to be Texas Longhorns freshman guard Trey Johnson, one of the top prospects in this draft, hands down. Texas is playing in the first 4 Wednesday night in Dayton against Xavier, another team that just got into the NCAA tournament. So, look, by the time you're listening to this, maybe Trey Johnson's already done and has declared for the NBA draft. But my opinion of Trey has changed throughout the season. When I watched him early on, absolutely saw a first round pick, big time, movement shooter, a guy that could really come off the screen, set guys up. If you allowed him to sort of like catch it and then face up in the mid post, like just a really pretty shot, like one of the best shooters, in the class. Throughout the season, he has really, my perception of him has changed because I think there's more on ball equity with him too. So it's not just the catch and shoot and the movement stuff. He's a very explosive movement shooter. He's so good at creating separation when he comes off those down screens. So the shot making, his footwork is so good. And I think that has started to transfer, at least from my vantage point, that started to transition more towards his self-created offense this season too. It's really shown up in that. is not necessarily like a lead ball handler, but with his ability to draw defensive attention, the gravity of his shot, he creates playmaking opportunities for himself. And I think some of the passing is okay, not great. But I think there's a pathway for something more there. This Texas team, talent wise, is not great. And even with all of that, like, he's still been awesome, even though he's absolutely, atop the scouting report for every opposing team. Just to get it in there, size wise, 6'6", 190. And some, like, I don't know, as far as, like, I would say he has some tools. Not an amazing athlete, but I wouldn't say like a negative athlete either. And again, it just sort of like shows up in different ways: the coordination, the shooting touch, the ability to get free, the footwork. He's really polished and advanced for a freshman, two guard scorer. So, Darian, what are your thoughts on Trey Johnson?
No, I agree with what you said, especially about him being polished for a scorer. Just because it's almost all his shots are calculated. His shot's really quick, very elegant. Like, I really like his shot. He can put him up quickly. He can catch fire quickly. He's. I mean, I would think about almost Chaz Lanier, but I think that it's just a lot better. Like, it's what you expect when you're talking about a guy possibly going into the NBA. But I really like what he's able to do. I like his maturity throughout the season. I think that at times, he kind of came in as this shooter, but as you mentioned, I think that his role has changed a little bit, and I think he took it in stride. He's a fun player to watch. I do worry about his frame a little bit at the next level, but the way he's just able to move, I don't know. It's just, if you can catch him, then maybe you can disrupt his shot, but it's not too many people that can really just stop him. You're definitely gonna have to close out. You're gonna have to play tight, or else he's gonna put it up, and more than likely it's gonna go in. He's a very fun player to watch. I do, like you said, I like some of the own ball stuff. I think that it's coming along. I think that at the beginning of the season, it really just wasn't asked of him to do much of it. So now that he has been put in that role, we're kind of watching it, in front of our very eyes. But overall, I think an excellent prospect. I think that this is a guy that, I keep saying this about the right plays, but he's another one where you can get it right away or you can get it later, depending on the place. But either way, I think at the end of the day, you can look at how really effective his shot's going to be at the next level. It's not too many people that's going to disrupt him.
Yeah. Again, big time prospect. If the Hornets, end up with I mean, this is a guy that probably has top 5 pick, caliber. Like, he's going to end up somewhere in that range for me. I would tier him below, Edgecombe, most likely, but he's coming in that tier. That's, I don't know if I'll have him tiered right with Bailey or right underneath him, but probably underneath. But really like Trey Johnson a good bit as a prospect, and he's the guy that the Hornets, depending on where their lottery pick lands, he's someone that they're going to have to consider. I think again, depending, that's sort of, they end up more in the 4 or 5 range. He is a prospect that'll land on their radar. So, all right, Darian, thank you for joining me on this. We tried to get through that as quickly as we possibly could. I feel like I maybe went a little long on some of the Duke prospects, so apologies for that. But we covered Jace Richardson from Michigan State, Cam Jones, Marquette, Danny Wolf, Michigan, VJ Edgecombe, Baylor, Cooper Flagg, Kaman Malawach from Duke, Walter Clayton Jr. from Florida, Derek Queen Jr. from Maryland, Nick Clifford from Colorado State, Kasparis Yakachonis from Illinois, Chaz Lanier from Tennessee, and Trey Johnson from Texas. Thank you for rocking with us. If you enjoy our work, please leave us a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your episodes. We'll have more Hornets coverage, more NBA draft coverage for you coming up the next few months as the season, really does start to wind down. It's hard to believe. Enjoy the rest of March Madness. Enjoy the Hornets who are in action, throughout this week as well. Take